A cleaning lady stood before the doors to the 52nd floor, her heart pounding, unsure whether she was about to step into an opportunity or a disaster. Just one day earlier, she had signed a single sentence, one that accidentally reached the heart of a grieving CEO and pulled a 9-year-old boy out of silence. That quiet gesture unlocked something far bigger, a secret that could shift the lives of people who've spent their whole lives unheard. Her name was Amina Johnson, 29, African-American, beautiful with bright eyes that always carried a hint of sorrow. In Harlem, where life moved hard and fast and dreams rarely got second chances, Amina had once been a standout linguistics student at Columbia. She had dreamed of becoming an educator for the deaf, but life had other plans. When her mother, Grace, was diagnosed with breast cancer, Amina dropped out in her final year and took a job as a hotel maid at the Grand Manhattan. Day after day, she pushed her cleaning cart down marble hallways where billionaires and CEOs passed her without a glance. No one really saw her, except Zara, her 18-year-old sister, born deaf, the center of Amina's world. To speak with Zara, Amina had taught herself American Sign Language through old books, borrowed DVDs, grainy YouTube videos. She never thought those hand signs would mean anything to anyone else, but they became a bridge between sisters, between silence and love. She had no idea they might one day light up someone else's entire world. It happened early one morning. Amina was wiping down the presidential boardroom on the 47th floor when she overheard a sharp exchange. Apex Innovations, the tech company pioneering AI to translate sign language, was holding a live demo. In the middle of the room stood CEO Daniel Thompson, 42, looking every bit the powerful man the world knew, except for the shadows in his eyes. Beside him stood his 9-year-old son, Liam, big eyes, solemn face. Liam had lost his hearing in a car crash 5 years ago. That same accident had taken his mother. Since then, Daniel had poured his grief into technology to help Liam and others like him, but the father and son barely touched each other's worlds. In that meeting, Liam signed a trembling sentence. "I want Dad to understand me," but the interpreter botched it, translated it as, "I want to go home." From the corner, Amina felt her stomach twist. She couldn't stay silent. Stepping forward, she raised her hands and corrected the interpretation, gently but firmly. The boy said he wants his father to understand him, not that he wants to leave. The room went still. Daniel turned toward her, his shock slowly melting into something deeper. He knew ASL, had studied it for Liam, and he knew instantly that Amina was right. Liam's eyes lit up like someone had finally opened a door he'd been knocking on for years. After the meeting, Daniel asked Amina to stay. They sat down and his voice softened. "Amina, what you did just now, that's something our entire engineering team hasn't been able to do. Would you be willing to help us?" Her instinct was to shrink back. "Sir, I'm just a maid. I don't belong in places like this." Daniel nodded toward Liam, who was watching her with a shy smile from across the room. "You gave my son a voice. That's exactly where you belong." Amina thought of Zara, of her mother, of all the hours spent pushing that cleaning cart unseen. And then she nodded, unsure, terrified, but maybe ready to try, just once. The next morning, as Amina stepped into the staff hallway, a security guard approached her. "Ms. Johnson, you've been asked to report to the 52nd floor, immediately." Her pulse surged. That floor? The executive's floor? She'd never even seen it. In the elevator, she clutched her uniform tightly, breathing deep. Maybe she was about to be fired for overstepping. When the doors opened, sunlight poured in through glass walls. The scent of sandalwood floated in the air. Everything gleamed. A receptionist looked up, her voice cool. "Mr. Thompson is expecting you." Amina stepped into the office, heart pounding. But what waited behind that door? A life-changing opportunity? Or a secret even heavier than the silence she had lived in? What secret lies on the 52nd floor? And is Amina ready to step into a world that was never meant to include her? Or is she about to be pulled into something far larger than she ever imagined? Her journey is just beginning. Amina Johnson stood outside the office on the 52nd floor, heart pounding. She didn't know whether she was walking into an opportunity or a trap. Just yesterday, she had used sign language to help a 9-year-old boy named Liam finally be understood by his father. That small act had cracked open a door to a world she'd never imagined. But now, under the cold fluorescent lights of Apex Innovation's sleek boardroom, a different door waited, one hiding a secret that could put the entire deaf community at risk. Taking a deep breath, Amina pushed the door open. Inside, Daniel Thompson, CEO of Apex Innovations, stood beside a large monitor displaying lines of AI code. Liam, the boy with wide, watchful eyes, sat nearby doodling on a pad of paper. Daniel turned with a warm smile. "Amina, thank you for coming. We need you on our AI project, the system we're building to interpret sign language and make communication easier for kids like Liam." Amina stood frozen. Her? A maid from Harlem? Invited to join a multi-million-dollar tech project? Before she could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air from the end of the table. "I don't believe a hotel maid is qualified for this work, Mr. Thompson." The words came from Lisa Martinez, Apex's COO. Her eyes were razor sharp. Lisa's younger sister is deaf, and she believed only top-tier professionals had the right to work on this system. Amina shrank inside, suddenly feeling small, out of place, like she didn't belong in the room at all. But Daniel didn't flinch. "Lisa, Amina understands ASL from the inside out, not from textbooks, from life. That's exactly what we need." He turned back to Amina, his voice steady. "You can do this. I believe in you." Amina glanced at Liam. The boy looked up and signed a single word, "Try." She nodded. Her heart was still racing, but the fear was no longer in control. She wasn't doing this for herself. She was doing it for Zara, for Liam, for everyone who had ever signed into a silence that no one tried to understand. The next day, Amina began working in Apex's temporary hotel office. That's where she met Clara Nguyen, a young, bright-eyed engineer who welcomed her with an open heart. Clara helped Amina understand how the AI interpreted ASL, how it read motion, pace, hand shape, and expression. And quickly, Amina saw its promise. The tech could help deaf people place video calls, talk to doctors, even call 911. But then she saw the flaw. During one test, the AI mistranslated the sign for "I'm in despair" as "I'm worried." It was subtle, but dangerous. In a crisis, like if Zara ever needed emergency help, that one mistranslation could be the difference between life and death. Amina flagged the issue to Clara, who looked deeply concerned. She whispered, "We need to tell Lisa, but she's under serious pressure from investors to launch on schedule." Meanwhile, Amina and Daniel were growing closer. One evening, they stayed late reviewing data. Daniel brought her coffee. They sat quietly in the soft glow of the monitor lights. He told her about the accident, the crash that took his wife and Liam's hearing. "I promised Liam I'd build a world where he wouldn't feel shut out, but some days I'm not sure I'm getting it right." Amina shared her own story, about her mother, Grace, about dropping out of school. "I used to think I wasn't good enough to change anything, but when I saw Liam's sign, I wanted to believe maybe I can." Daniel looked at her, something gentle in his eyes. "You already are. For Liam, you are." But not everyone welcomed her presence. Lisa's mistrust only grew. She began to see Amina's feedback as interference. In a team meeting, she finally snapped. "Miss Johnson, you have no idea what kind of pressure this project is under. If we delay, investors walk. That means the deaf community gets nothing." Amina stood, her voice trembling but strong. "If we release an AI with this kind of flaw, it'll harm the very people we say we're helping. I know that because my sister lives with that risk every day." The room fell into a heavy silence. Lisa gave a cold smile. "Maybe you should stick to folding sheets." That night, back in her tiny Harlem apartment, Amina sat curled next to Zara, telling her what had happened. Zara signed quietly, "You always told me to fight back. Don't stop now." Amina nodded, but her heart was heavy. She knew she had to keep going. But how much would it cost? The next morning when she arrived at the Apex office, Clara pulled her aside, voice barely above a whisper. "Amina, I found something. Lisa is hiding era data. She knows the AI's flawed and she's covering it up. If we don't act soon, the world's going to believe this tech is ready when it's not." A chill ran down Amina's spine. She had walked through a door into something much bigger than herself. Now she was standing at the edge of a storm, and she didn't know if she had the strength to face what was coming. What is Lisa hiding? Will Amina risk everything to confront someone with that much power? Or will she be swallowed by the very system she tried to change? Her fight is only getting harder.
Amina Johnson stood in the corner of Apex Innovation's conference room, clutching a folder so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her heart pounded like it might burst. Just hours earlier, she had uncovered a terrifying truth. Lisa Martinez, Apex's chief operating officer, was hiding a fatal flaw in the sign language AI. If this went unchecked, people like her sister Zara, like 9-year-old Liam, would pay the price. But going up against Lisa meant challenging an entire system of power. And who was she to do that? Just a maid from Harlem? The night before, after Clara, the kind-hearted young engineer, confessed Lisa had manipulated the AI data to hide its errors, Amina had returned to her Harlem apartment shaken to her core. Sitting beside Zara, under the soft yellow light of their tiny living room, she watched her sister sign with swift, steady hands. "You always told me to speak out when something's wrong. Don't be afraid, Amina." Amina wrapped her arms around Zara and remembered the strength in her mother's voice, even as cancer hollowed her body. Grace Johnson had taught her daughters that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but doing what's right despite it. Amina knew now this wasn't just about code, it was about people. And she had to act. For Zara, for Liam, for all of them. The next morning, Amina walked into the Apex office with the folder of evidence clutched tightly in her hand. Clara met her near the break room, eyes darting nervously. "Amina," she whispered, "I found more. Lisa didn't just ignore the AI's errors, she doctored the data. She made it look flawless for the investors. If this gets released, deaf users could be in serious danger, like Zara in a real emergency." Amina nodded, rage stirring beneath her skin. She remembered the time Zara tried to call for help when their mother collapsed, but no one could understand her. A broken AI could make moments like that deadly. As the storm swirled inside Apex, Amina and Daniel Thompson, CEO and father to Liam, grew closer. One afternoon, while reviewing new datasets, Liam burst into the room, waving a crayon drawing with excited, clumsy hands. It showed the three of them, Amina, Daniel, and Liam, holding hands under a big sun. Daniel's voice caught. "He hasn't drawn me like this since his mother died." Amina reached out gently, her voice low. "You're doing your best, Daniel. Don't give up." He looked at me, eyes filled with something unspoken. "You give me hope, Amina, not just for Liam, for me too."
Her heart fluttered, but she pushed it down. There wasn't room for feelings. Not yet. Not when the truth was still buried. That night, she made her decision. She requested an emergency meeting with Daniel and the leadership team. As she stood in the glass-walled boardroom, surrounded by executives in tailored suits, her stomach twisted. She felt like she had stepped backward in time, to the quiet days of pushing a cart past polished doors, invisible. At the far end of the table, Lisa sat with her usual icy stare. Amina inhaled sharply and began. "Our AI has a critical flaw. It fails to capture emotional meaning in ASL. When someone signs, 'I'm in despair,' it translates it as, 'I'm worried.' That's not just inaccurate, it's dangerous. People like my sister Zara and Mr. Thompson's son Liam could suffer because of this." She held up the folder, her hands trembling, but her voice firm. "And someone knew about this and hid it." Lisa stood instantly, voice slicing through the air. "This is slander, Ms. Johnson. You have no idea the pressure we're under. If we delay, investors will pull out, and who will help the deaf then?" But Daniel raised his hand. "Lisa, let her finish." Amina continued, her voice cracking only slightly, as she told him about Zara, how she nearly died once because no one understood her signs. She turned to Liam and signed slowly. "Liam, do you want people to understand you?" The boy nodded and signed back, "I want to be heard." Silence fell over the room, thick, heavy. But Lisa wasn't done. After the meeting, she pulled Amina aside, her voice soft and poisonous. "You're playing a dangerous game, Ms. Johnson. Keep this up and you'll lose your job at the hotel and any chance of staying here." Amina felt the chill of fear crawl up her spine. But then she remembered Liam's eyes, Zara's hands, her mother's voice. She met Lisa's gaze, steady and calm. "I'm not afraid, because people like Liam and Zara deserve protection." Lisa smirked. "You'll regret this." That night, Amina's phone buzzed. A message from Clara. "Amina, I found it. An email Lisa sent to investors. She's planning to launch the AI early, even knowing it's broken. We have to stop her." But how? Amina sat alone in the dark, her hands shaking. She was standing at a crossroads, silence and safety, or truth and risk. If she spoke out, she might lose everything. But if she stayed quiet, she'd lose herself. The next step would change everything. And the people she cared about most were the ones who'd feel it first. What happens when truth threatens power? And who stands by you when it does? Amina's fight is just heating up. Amina Johnson stood before the Apex Innovations Board of Directors, her hand gripping the folder of evidence, her eyes steady, though her heart quivered beneath her calm. Just hours earlier, she had confirmed it. Lisa Martinez was hiding a critical flaw in the AI designed to interpret sign language, a flaw that could endanger millions of deaf users, including her sister Zara and young Liam. This was the moment. Expose the truth and risk everything, or stay silent to protect herself. But as the lights of the boardroom bore down on her, Amina knew there was no going back. The night before, after Clara unearthed Lisa's email outlining plans to launch the flawed AI early, Amina couldn't sleep. She sat in her Harlem apartment staring at an old photo of her mother Grace, the one who had always told her that truth was worth fighting for. Zara sat beside her, signing through the soft flicker of a lamp. "You're the strongest person I know. Don't let them scare you." Amina pulled her sister close. The fear inside her melted into resolve. She wasn't doing this for herself. She was doing it for every voice that had gone unheard for too long. The next morning, Amina prepared for the emergency board meeting. Clara, visibly nervous but unwavering, handed her a small USB drive. "This has everything, but Amina, if we go through with this, Lisa won't just forgive and forget, she could ruin us." Amina took Clara's hand, voice firm. "If we don't do this, who's going to protect kids like Liam?" Before walking into the room, she passed Daniel Thompson and his son in the hallway. Liam ran up to her, his signs clumsy but full of meaning. "You'll help me, right?" Amina smiled softly and signed back. "I promise." Daniel touched her shoulder, eyes sincere. "I'm with you, Amina. We do this together." His words gave her courage and something more. A quiet stirring she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. Inside, the boardroom was packed. Executives lined the long table in sharp suits. Lisa sat at the head, her stare as cold as steel. Amina stood, voice trembling but clear. "Our AI isn't safe. It fails to interpret emotional nuance in ASL. When someone signs, 'I'm in despair,' it translates to, 'I'm worried.' In an emergency, like when my sister Zara once tried to call for help, that mistake could cost a life." She tapped the projector. A clip played. A deaf woman signing, "Help me," but the AI output read, "I'm fine." A gasp rippled through the room. Eyes widened. Faces tightened. Amina raised the USB drive. "And I have proof that someone intentionally hid this to push for early release." Lisa shot up from her seat, voice sharp with outrage. "You're accusing me? I have a deaf sister. I want this tech more than anyone. You don't understand the pressure we're under. If we delay, we lose everything." But Amina didn't back down. She told him about Zara, about the time help came too late because no one understood. Then she turned to Liam. "Liam," she signed gently, "do you want people to understand how you feel?" The boy stood up slowly. His small hands moved with quiet certainty. "I want to be heard." Daniel's voice broke as he rose beside his son. "Amina's right. We can't prioritize profit over people." The board demanded evidence. Amina stepped forward, plugged in the USB, and pulled up Lisa's email, confirming she planned to launch the system early, knowing full well it was flawed. Lisa's face went pale. She scrambled to defend herself. "I did this for my sister. If the project fails, we'll never get another chance." But one senior board member shook his head. "Miss Martinez, noble intentions don't excuse deception." A decision was made. Lisa was asked to leave the room. As she passed Amina, her voice barely above a whisper, "You'll pay for this." After the meeting, Daniel knelt to hug Liam tightly, his voice thick. "You saved this project, Amina, and you saved kids like Liam." Liam ran up and signed something that brought tears to Amina's eyes. "Your family." She dropped to her knees and hugged him, her heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. Daniel stood close, voice low. "Amina, I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled, her chest fluttering, but she said nothing. The feelings between them were growing, undeniable, but the timing wasn't right. Not yet. That night, Amina returned to Harlem and told her mother and Zara everything. Grace, frail but fierce, squeezed her daughter's hand. "You've made me proud, baby. You are the light of this family." But peace didn't last. The next morning, her phone rang. A voice on the other end was cold and clinical. "Miss Johnson, this is hotel management. Your employment has been terminated. You violated conduct policies. Someone filed a formal complaint." Amina froze. She didn't need to ask, who? Lisa was still striking back. She hung up and sat in silence, staring at her sister. She had told the truth, fought for justice, and lost her job. Was it worth it? And what would happen when Lisa made her next move? Because Amina could feel it. The fight wasn't over. Not even close. Amina Johnson stood outside her tiny apartment in Harlem, clutching the termination letter from the Grand Manhattan Hotel. Her heart felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Just yesterday, she had exposed Lisa Martinez's deception and saved the AI project from harming the deaf community, including her sister Zara and little Liam. But the cost of truth had come swift and sharp. Lisa had retaliated, stripping Amina of the job that fed her family. And now, in the shadows of Harlem, Amina found herself wondering, was she strong enough to get back up? Or would the powerful finally break her? The firing cut like a blade. She sat quietly beside her mother, Grace, whose strength was fading fast as cancer took its toll. Grace squeezed her daughter's hand and whispered, voice rough but steady, "You did the right thing, Amina. Don't let them snuff out your light." Zara sat beside them, signing fast with fierce conviction, "You're my hero. Don't stop now." Amina wrapped her arms around them both, tears slipping down her cheeks. But in their words, something stirred, a spark. She thought of Liam, who called her family. She thought of Daniel, who never stopped believing in her. She couldn't walk away. The next morning, Amina returned to Apex Innovations. She didn't know if she'd be welcomed or escorted out. But Clara ran toward her the moment she stepped through the glass doors and threw her arms around her. "Amina, the board voted. They want you to lead the new Accessibility and Ethics Division." Amina froze. A maid, now asked to shape the future of AI? Her knees nearly gave out. But Clara leaned in, voice quieter now. "Lisa is not done. She's still whispering to investors. She's trying to sabotage the project from the outside." Amina nodded, a quiet steel forming in her chest. She knew the fight wasn't over. Later that day, Daniel found her in a quiet office overlooking the city. His eyes were gentle. "I heard about the hotel. I'm so sorry you lost that because of this." She smiled faintly, voice calm. "I don't regret it, Daniel. For Liam, for Zara, I'll start over if I have to." He reached out, touched her hand. "You don't have to do it alone. Liam and we're here." Her heart fluttered again, but she still held back. There was so much at stake, so much still unfinished. Just then, Liam came bounding into the room, holding a crayon drawing. It showed the three of them, Amina, Daniel, and himself, standing hand in hand, signing the word hope. Amina dropped to her knees and hugged him, tears welling. He signed softly, "Your family." And in that moment, something inside her cracked open. Not broken, released. To protect the project, Amina and Clara organized a community gathering in Harlem, inviting families from across the deaf community. Zara stood before the crowd and signed her story. The night she almost died because no one could understand her. A mother in the audience broke down, recalling her son, deaf and terrified, unable to call for help when their home caught fire. The stories came, one after another. Wounds, warnings, truths. Amina stepped forward. Our AI will not be released until it's safe. You deserve to be understood." The room erupted in a sea of fluttering hands, the sign for thank you sweeping the space like light pouring in. Daniel stood beside her, eyes filled with quiet pride. But Lisa hadn't vanished.
Days later, an anonymous article began to circulate online, accusing Amina of manipulating the Apex project for personal gain. It spread like wildfire across X. The comment sections turned cruel. Back in her apartment, Amina stared at the screen, the vitriol burning. One headline called her a fraud. Another called her dangerous. She felt the weight of the world pressing in. Her phone rang. It was Daniel. "Amina," his voice steady, "I know the truth. We'll face this together." A few minutes later, a video arrived from Liam. The little boy sat in front of the camera, signing awkwardly but earnestly. "Miss Amina, don't be sad. I believe in you." She wiped her tears, sat up straight. Lisa's smear campaign was her final move, and Amina was done playing defense. She and Clara began tracing the article's origin, digging through metadata, server logs, anything they could find. And finally, they found it. The post had been submitted using an email connected to one of Lisa's former investors. They had enough. Amina began preparing for a press conference. She would speak, publicly, officially. No more hiding. The day before the event, Daniel found her on the rooftop balcony of the Apex building. The city stretched beneath them like a maze of light. He took her hand. "Amina, I don't just want to work with you, I want to be with you, and so does Liam. Would you let us?" She stood silent for a beat, heart thudding in her chest. Then she smiled, eyes soft. "Daniel, I need time, but I know this. I don't want to lose you. Either of you." They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. There was already something real between them, a promise waiting to bloom. The next day, Amina walked onto the stage beneath a barrage of flashing lights. Her back was straight, her eyes steady. She had been the invisible maid in a hotel hallway. Now, she was the voice of a revolution. But what would happen when the whole truth came out? Could she protect the ones she loved? Or would Lisa strike one last time? The final reckoning is near.
Amina Johnson stood on stage beneath a flurry of flashing lights, her heart thundering inside her chest. In front of her was the world, journalists, investors, skeptics, and strangers. She had been falsely accused of manipulating Apex Innovations' AI project, an attack orchestrated by Lisa Martinez, desperate to ruin her for exposing the truth. But Amina, once an invisible maid in a Manhattan hotel, now held in her hands something more powerful than fear: proof, purpose, and the will to protect those she loved. Zara, her deaf sister, Liam, the boy who called her family, and an entire community that had gone unheard for far too long. This was her chance to light a fire that wouldn't die. The spotlight illuminated her face as she stepped to the microphone. "My name is Amina Johnson. I used to clean rooms at the Grand Manhattan Hotel, but today I stand here for those who haven't been heard, like my sister, Zara, and like Liam Thompson, the son of Apex Innovations' CEO. She spoke clearly and without apology. About the fatal flaw in the sign language AI, about how Zara nearly died once because no one could understand her, and about the email Lisa had sent investors promising a launch date even knowing the risk to the deaf community. She played the clip from the USB. The screen behind her flashed with Lisa's words. The room stirred, journalists scribbled, cameras clicked. Then Amina signed her final line, her voice unwavering. "We cannot let profit take the place of people's voices." Silence. And then thunderous applause. Hands lifted across the room, signing thank you in every direction. The Apex board present at the conference stood up and issued a public apology to the deaf community. They announced that Amina would officially lead the company's new Accessibility and Ethics division, with full authority to rebuild the AI from the inside out. Daniel Thompson held Liam close, his eyes never leaving Amina. Pride beamed from his face. But Lisa? She stood in the far corner, silent. Her jaw was tight, her eyes unreadable. Then, without a word, she turned and walked out. Amina knew, she hadn't seen the last of her. After the press conference, something remarkable happened. Deaf creators, interpreters, and families took to X, formerly Twitter, sharing Amina's story under the hashtag #HearUsNow. It went viral. That night, back in her Harlem apartment, Amina sat on the couch between her mother and Zara. Grace, though weakened by cancer, smiled softly. "You turned our pain into something powerful, Amina." Zara signed quickly. "You're the hero of the world now." Amina laughed, brushing away tears, but inside, a heavy ache remained. She had lost her job, and the online hate still lingered. Anonymous comments, cruel accusations. Even when the truth is on your side, the noise doesn't always stop. A few days later, Daniel invited Amina and Zara to dinner at a small Harlem restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it felt warm. Liam was radiant, signing a clumsy joke that made the whole table burst into laughter. Mid-meal, Daniel gently reached for Amina's hand. "Amina," he said softly, "Liam and I don't just want you in this project, we want you in our family, in our life." Liam signed slowly, looking up at her. "Will you stay with us?" Amina's breath caught. She smiled, tears tracing her cheeks. "I want to, but I need time. To rebuild. To feel steady again." Daniel nodded. His eyes were patient. "We'll wait." In that moment, something shifted. Not an ending. A beginning. A family not bound by blood, but by choice. The next morning, Amina stepped into her new office at Apex. She joined Clara and leaders from the deaf community to rework the AI, this time ensuring it could capture emotion, nuance, tone. No more mistranslations. No more danger disguised as innovation. But just as hope began to root, a message arrived. Anonymous. Cold. "You think you've won? I'll make sure you lose everything." Amina stared at the screen. No name, no sender. But she didn't need one. She knew. Lisa hadn't disappeared. She had simply gone underground. And now the target wasn't just the project. It could be the people Amina was beginning to call home. She stood at the window of her office, watching the New York skyline stretch into the clouds. Slowly, her hands moved in the air. Hope. The word floated between her fingers. Lisa could threaten her job. She could tarnish her name. But she couldn't touch what mattered most. Because even in the dark, Amina's fire would never go out.
Amina Johnson stood by the window of her Apex Innovations office, clutching her phone. On the screen was a message that chilled her to the bone. "You think you've won. I'll make sure you lose everything." Lisa Martinez, though stripped of her title, was still plotting from the shadows, targeting not only the AI project, but the family Amina had just begun to build. Once an invisible maid from Harlem, Amina was now Director of Accessibility and Ethics, but she knew the final battle was coming. She looked out at the New York skyline, then slowly signed one word into the night: hope. After the explosive press conference, Amina became a symbol for the deaf community. The hashtag #HearUsNow swept across X, but victory came at a cost. She had lost her job at the hotel, and hateful online comments still haunted her. One morning, Clara burst into her office, pale-faced and breathless. "Amina, Lisa just sent a fake report to a new group of investors. She's accusing you and Daniel of embezzling project funds. If they believe her, we could lose everything." Amina's stomach turned. Lisa wasn't just trying to ruin the AI, she wanted to destroy their reputations. She rushed to find Daniel, who was in his office, teaching Liam a new sign. The boy beamed as he looked up and signed, "Miss Amina, I learned the word strong." But Daniel's smile faded when he heard about Lisa's latest attack. "I'll speak with the investors," he said firmly. "You shouldn't have to carry this burden alone." But Amina shook her head, her voice calm but steady. "Daniel, we're a team. I've come too far to back down now." Daniel took her hand, his voice low, full of emotion. "I know. That's why I need you in my life." Amina smiled, her heart aching in all the best ways, but her focus remained on the battle ahead. She and Clara worked around the clock to gather evidence. They discovered that Lisa had hired a hacker to forge documents, but a tiny mistake exposed the fake, a traceable transaction linked to her old investor. Amina scheduled a video call with the new backers. She spoke clearly, signing as she talked. "I used to be a maid, but I understand the value of honesty. This project isn't just about tech, it's about hope, for people like my sister Zara, for kids like Liam."
She played the video. Lisa's email appeared on screen, undeniable proof of her deception. The investors were quiet at first. Then they nodded. They'd continued to fund the project. And they were opening a full investigation into Lisa Martinez. Amina exhaled for the first time in days. But she knew. Lisa wasn't done. That night, she returned to her Harlem apartment. Grace, her mother, was waiting with Zara. Though frail, Grace held out a folded blue suit, a gift she had secretly sewn for Amina. "You're the light of Harlem," she whispered. "I'm proud of you." Amina hugged her tightly. Zara signed with a grin. "You did it!" "So, what's next?" Amina smiled, her own hands moving softly. "I keep fighting for you." Later that week, Daniel and Liam invited her to the park to celebrate. Liam ran around making up signs about birds, giggling nonstop. Daniel pulled Amina aside, his tone gentle but serious. "Amina, Daniel and we don't just want you today, we want you always. Are you ready for that?" Amina looked into his eyes, then at Liam, who was signing one word: family. She nodded, voice trembling. "I'm ready, Daniel." They embraced, the sunset wrapping around them like a silent vow. But the next morning, news broke on X. Lisa Martinez had been arrested for document forgery and threatening Amina. She confessed everything. Her motive? Jealousy. Because Amina had done what she couldn't, give her deaf sister a voice. Amina stared at the article, a strange calm settling over her. She signed one word into the air: forgiveness. She hoped Lisa would find peace somehow. That afternoon, Amina walked into the Apex building wearing her mother's blue suit. Her eyes shone with purpose. She now led a team reshaping the AI, making it more accurate, more human, more just. She worked side by side with Clara and the deaf community, determined to make sure no voice ever got lost again. And as she looked out across the city skyline, she felt it in her bones. The journey wasn't over, but somewhere ahead, a fairer world was waiting. And Amina Johnson was not going to stop walking towards it.
Amina Johnson stood in her Apex Innovations office, eyes lit with fire as she gazed out over the New York skyline, a place where dreams and struggles merged. She had just defeated Lisa Martinez's final scheme, protecting the AI project designed to interpret sign language for the deaf community, including her sister Zara and 9-year-old Liam. Once an invisible maid in Harlem, Amina was now Director of Accessibility and Ethics, known around the world to the #HearUsNow movement. But then came the unexpected, an invitation from the United Nations. They wanted Amina to speak at a global summit on disability rights. It was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to bring the voices of the deaf to the world stage, but it also meant leaving behind the people she loved most, for 3 long months in Geneva. After Lisa's arrest, Apex entered a new era. Amina led her team alongside Clara, the warm-hearted young engineer, refining the AI to capture emotional nuance in ASL. One morning, Clara rushed into the office waving an email. "Amina, the UN wants you to speak at the Global Disability Rights Conference. You'd represent the deaf community. This could change the world." Amina stared at the screen. Geneva. 3 months away from her mother Grace, who was fading fast from cancer. 3 months away from Daniel Thompson and Liam. That night, she returned to her apartment in Harlem and sat beside her mother. Grace, pale and tired, slowly signed a few shaky words, a skill she had learned just to talk with Zara. "You have to go, Amina. I want to see you fly. It's what I've always dreamed for you." Amina wept as she held her. Zara, sitting nearby, signed with clarity and strength. "You gave me a voice. Now give the world one too." Amina nodded, her heart heavy with love and fear. She thought of Liam, the boy who called her family, and Daniel, the man who had opened his heart to her. Daniel came to see her at Apex, his eyes gentle, his voice low. "I heard about the UN. You deserve this, Amina." She whispered, "My mom doesn't have much time, and I don't want to be away from you, or Liam." Daniel took her hands. "We'll wait for you. Liam and I will move to Harlem while you're gone. Stay close to Grace and Zara. You don't have to choose between your dream and your family."
Amina felt tears rise again. Just then, Liam came bursting into the room, beaming. He signed, "You're going to help people like you helped me, right?" Amina smiled, pulling him close. She signed back, "I promise." But the challenges didn't end there. That afternoon, Clara rushed in again. "Amina, we've got a problem. A rival company just cloned our AI code, and it's the faulty version Lisa tried to push out. They're planning to launch it across Europe. If you don't go to Geneva, millions could be at risk." The UN invitation wasn't just an honor, it was a call to action. Amina had to stop the disaster before it spread. She began preparing to leave, but just days before her flight, devastating news struck. Grace had been rushed to the hospital. Amina dropped everything, racing to her mother's side. Grace lay on the hospital bed, frail but smiling. She reached for Amina's hand and whispered, "You are my legacy. Go and take Harlem with you." Amina wept, holding her as tightly as she could. Zara, strong and calm, signed, "I'll be here with Mom. You do what you were born to do." Amina nodded, her heart breaking but full of resolve. The night before her departure, Daniel and Liam threw a small goodbye party in Harlem. Liam handed her a drawing, Amina standing on a global stage, signing the word hope. Daniel gave her a bracelet, small and simple, engraved with one word, family. He said, "This is your reminder that no matter where you go, we're with you." She hugged them both, overcome. In that moment, she knew this was home, this was love. The next morning, Amina walked into JFK Airport wearing the blue suit her mother had made by hand. She took one last look at the New York skyline, the city that had shaped her, broken her, and lifted her up again. Ahead of her, Geneva. A global stage. A fight that mattered. But Harlem would always be in her heart. Always.
Amina Johnson stood on stage at the United Nations conference in Geneva, the spotlight glowing against the blue suit her mother had sewn. Her heart pounded as she faced hundreds of delegates from around the world. She was here to protect the deaf community, including her sister Zara and 9-year-old Liam, from a dangerous AI developed by a rival company. Once an invisible maid in Harlem, Amina now stood as a symbol of global hope. But a new threat was rising, one that could silence the very voices she'd fought to amplify. She had arrived in Geneva with a dual mission: to present Apex Innovations' ethically designed AI and stop global tech from launching a flawed system nearly identical to the one Lisa Martinez had once tried to hide. Inside the UN chamber, Amina signed as she spoke, "I'm Amina Johnson. I used to clean hotel rooms, but today I'm here for those who go unheard. AI must understand the emotional nuance of sign language because one misinterpretation can cost a life." She played a video, a deaf man signing "Help me," misinterpreted by Global Tech's AI as "I'm okay." The room fell silent, then stirred with murmurs of concern. Amina told the story of Zara, how a misinterpretation nearly cost her life, and of Liam, the little boy who had taught her the meaning of family. She ended her speech with a single signed word: hope. The room erupted into applause. Dozens of delegates signed back in return. But Global Tech wasn't backing down. After the speech, their executive, Richard Holt, cornered her. "You're interfering with progress, Ms. Johnson. Our AI goes live in a week. No one can stop it." Amina stiffened. She recognized his name, linked to Lisa's former investor. They were using the UN stage to legitimize a dangerous system. Back in New York, Clara appeared on a video call, her voice shaky. "Amina, I just found out. Global Tech stole part of our source code. They're trying to outpace us. If they launch first..." The weight on her shoulders deepened, but she remembered what her mother told her before she left. Take Harlem with you. Amina called an emergency meeting in Geneva, inviting disability organizations from every continent. She brought together deaf leaders to share their stories. A young woman from Kenya spoke of being unable to explain her illness to a doctor. An elderly man from Japan shared the isolation he felt when no one could understand him. Their stories touched the hearts of the UN delegates. The vote was unanimous. Global Tech's II launch would be suspended pending independent review. Amina exhaled, but she knew the fight wasn't over. Far from home, she missed her mother deeply. One night, Zara called from Harlem. She signed, "Mom's okay, but we miss you. I'm proud of you." Daniel and Liam appeared on screen, waving. Liam signed, "Miss Amina, I saw you on TV. You're a superhero." Daniel smiled warmly. "Harlem's cheering for you, Amina." Tears welled in her eyes. She touched the bracelet Daniel had given her, family engraved into the metal. She wasn't alone. Then came the next blow. Global Tech launched a smear campaign, accusing Amina of sabotaging them for personal gain. The lies spread across X, and her reputation took a hit. She stood in front of the mirror in her Geneva hotel room wearing the blue suit, questioning herself. Was she strong enough for this? She took a deep breath and signed the word strength. Then she launched her counterattack. Amina organized a global live stream from the heart of Geneva. She invited deaf communities across the world to speak, sign, and share their truths. Zara appeared from Harlem, signing, "My sister gave me a voice. Don't let anyone take it away." Daniel, Liam appeared on screen. "Miss Amina is family. I believe her." Thousands joined the broadcast, signing #HearUsNow. The pressure was overwhelming. Global Tech folded. They pulled the faulty II from the market. The UN pledged support for Apex's project. Amina cried as she embraced Clara over video. They had won. At the Geneva airport, sunlight shimmered on Amina's blue suit. She stared at the horizon, knowing Harlem's voice had been heard around the world. But as she boarded her flight back to New York, her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital. Grace Johnson is in critical condition. Amina clutched her bracelet, the word family pressing against her palm. Her heart was heavy, but full of hope. She had changed the world. Now it was time to return to the people who had made her believe she could.
Amina Johnson sat aboard the plane from Geneva to New York, clutching the bracelet engraved with family. Her heart heavy with the news. Her mother, Grace, was in critical condition. She had just helped the world listen to the deaf community, saving millions like her sister Zara and 9-year-old Liam from a dangerously flawed AI. But now, as the plane began its descent, Amina braced herself for the most painful moment of all, saying goodbye to the woman who had lit the fire inside her. Once an invisible maid in Harlem, Amina had become a global symbol. Now she was returning home to fulfill one final promise. The moment her plane touched down at JFK, Amina rushed straight to the hospital, her mother's blue suit still draped across her shoulders. Inside the room, Grace lay weak but radiant, her eyes still glowing with life. Zara sat beside her, signing through tears, "Mom waited for you." Amina knelt beside the bed, grasping her mother's frail hand. "I did it, Mama. I took Harlem to the world, just like you told me to." Grace smiled softly, whispering, "You are my legacy, and Harlem will never forget you."
She squeezed Amina's and Zara's hands one last time, then closed her eyes, leaving behind a silence filled with love. Amina and Zara clung to each other, weeping as they held onto the warmth their mother left behind. In the days that followed, Amina mourned deeply, but found strength in the family she had built. Daniel Thompson and Liam arrived at the Harlem apartment with a bouquet of white roses, Grace's favorite. Liam, his big eyes filled with innocence, signed clumsily, "Miss Grace is an angel, like my mom." Amina held the boy tightly, tears falling as she smiled through the ache. Daniel took her hand. "We're here, Amina, always." She nodded, knowing she was no longer alone. Zara signed firmly, "Mom would want us to keep going, don't stop." And Amina knew her mission wasn't over. It had only just begun. At Apex Innovations, Amina led the launch of the finalized sign language AI. They named it GraceVoice in honor of her mother. During the unveiling in Harlem, the deaf community gathered in celebration, signing across the crowd like a wave.
Zara stood on stage, using GraceVoice to speak for the first time. "My sister gave me a voice. Now I can call for help. I can live like everyone else." A mother in the audience hugged her deaf son, signing tearfully, "Thank you, Amina." Daniel stood beside her, holding Liam, pride shining in his eyes. Amina signed from the stage, "This isn't mine alone. It's Harlem's legacy. It's my mother's. It's yours." Applause erupted. The hashtag #HearUsNow surged once more on X. But Amina didn't stop there. She founded the GraceVoices Foundation, dedicated to supporting education and accessible technology for deaf children worldwide. She appointed Clara as executive director. Clara beamed, "You changed my life, Amina. Now let's change the world." Amina laughed, signing, "Together." One afternoon, Amina, Daniel, Liam, and Zara strolled through a Harlem park. Liam skipped ahead, signing a silly story about a squirrel that made everyone laugh. Daniel pulled Amina aside. He dropped to one knee and opened a small ring box. "Amina, Liam and I want you to be our family forever. Will you?" Amina looked at Zara, who signed with a grin, "You deserve to be happy." Turning back to Daniel, her eyes sparkled with tears. "I'm ready, Daniel." They embraced. Liam jumped into their arms, signing joyfully, "Family!" Under the warm Harlem sunset, Amina finally felt whole. A home built on hope, love, and the rhythm of her roots. A year later, Amina stood in front of a new community center in Harlem. Its name, carved into stone, Grace. She cut the ribbon, then signed to the crowd, "This is where our voices will echo forever." Zara, now an ASL teacher, led a group of children in signing. Daniel and Liam stood beside Amina, helping her build a living legacy. She gazed out toward the New York skyline, remembering her mother's words, "You are the light." Amina signed the word legacy, feeling Harlem's heartbeat in her chest. She had lit a flame that reached the world, and Harlem's light would never fade.